Today we're delving into the captivating tales of individuals who defied the odds, rising from humble beginnings to lead one of the most notorious motorcycle clubs in history, the Hells Angels. Among them, we will delve into the lives of Walter Stadnick, Angelo Pandeli, and the infamous Harry Taco Bowman, tracing their paths from adversity to authority within the Hells Angels hierarchy. We will explore the gripping narratives of their story, showcasing resilience, ambition, and the allure of the outlaw lifestyle. Let's get started.
Vladmir Walter Stadnick, the man who sets the ball rolling into a new era of organized criminal biker gangs. But unlike your typical biker boss forged under the fire and pressure of war, this one forced his way into the biker world. Unprovoked, he enters this world as an inexperienced kid with a hunger to do more, hanging out with the big boys club, and in no time becomes the national president of the Hells Angels. Some hate him, others fear him, but most of them want his head on a spike. If there's smoke, he is the one lighting the fire, and if there's a VIP list of most wanted gang leaders, he isn't just on it, he wrote it.
Stadnick, a figurehead in the criminal underworld for many years, was apprehended earlier today.
From secret strategy meetings to notorious alliances and criminal undertakings that would easily rival a Hollywood thriller, Vladmir isn't your everyday biker with tattoos and the signal leather jacket on a Harley Davidson. He has all the twisty, dark alleys of biker gangs at his fingertips. But how does a Ukrainian immigrant rise to head the biggest motorcycle club in Canada? What's so special about him, and how did he do it? Well, if you're into tales of roaring engines, buckle up for a wild ride. Born in 1952 into a family of Ukrainian immigrants in the Niagara Escarpment, Vladmir Stadnick grows up in a neighborhood known for its high rate of petty crimes. While he doesn't show signs of getting into the crime life, his intelligence doesn't go unnoticed. As one of his teachers says this about him in the book Fallen Angel,
he clearly had a great deal of natural intelligence, but he was impossible to motivate. It was almost like he didn't want to succeed.
But then he did, and in ways no one thought he could. When he enters high school, Vladmir quickly gains a reputation as a drug dealer, and everyone now knows him as Nugget, a nickname that he holds onto years later, together with his love for dressing flamboyantly in extravagant jewelry, chains, and rings. As if drug trafficking isn't enough, he joins a biker gang while still in high school, and that's where his journey in the criminal motorcycle underworld begins. In his teenage years, everyone around Vladmir feels like he has outgrown his age, and his decision to join the Cossacks vindicates their worries. Before joining the gang, it has a different name and is not so famous, except for its members' reputation of keeping their hair long and running it through holes they drill in their bike helmets. In his first act of gang dominance, he names the gang the Cossacks in reference to his Ukrainian heritage, and his time with them is filled with controversy. In October 1970, Vladmir is arrested with LSD tablets in his pocket. He makes bail but is arrested shortly after for being in possession of hash with the intention to distribute it. In his preliminary hearing, his biker friends cause trouble in and outside the courtroom, threatening the police officers who were about to testify against him. While he is convicted, it's just the beginning of an enduring legacy that would see his name etched in the history of motorcycle clubs. When he finishes his sentence, Stadnick comes out a reformed man, except he's not looking to abandon his ways, but to find an upgrade. At the time, the Satan's Choice is the most powerful motorcycle club in Ontario, and luckily, Stadnick is friends with their president, Mario Parente. He wants to join Satan's Choice, but Mario thinks otherwise. He informs Stadnick that he can't join just because he is 5'4" tall. Stadnick doesn't take the disrespect lightly, and this sets the ball rolling for years of bitter rivalry. While he abandons the Cossacks and joins the Wild Ones in 1977, while Satan's Choice partners up with the Outlaws. In the road to hell, Hamilton police officer John Gordon Harris talks about Stadnick.
He was a little short guy. He certainly wasn't the most visible member of the gang. He was just a face in the crowd. He was almost invisible, but he did have a head on his shoulders.
He goes all out to disprove Mario and the Satan's Choice gang's decision not to take him in, and by 1978, he is the leader of the Wild Ones in an era dominated by the Mafia, who hire outlaw biker gangs to do their dirty work. Still, Stadnick is nowhere near satisfied by the dominance of the Wild Ones, as other clubs view them as inferior and nothing to worry about. He contacts the national president of the Hells Angels Canada, Yves Buteau, looking for a merger. This action sends seismic shockwaves in the motorcycle underworld and the outlaw MC, which had joined with Satan's Choice MC. Take notice of this. Despite warnings by other outlaws to stop associating with the Hells Angels, Stadnick remains relentless. Due to this, most of the Wild Ones members get murdered. He takes the initiative to personally visit Hells Angels president Yves Buteau in Montreal. While in Montreal, two contracted outlaws follow the Hells Angels around to find the venue of this meeting. During the meeting, held at Le Tourbillon Bar, the two outlaws start a shootout, which leaves 3 dead and many others injured. Stadnick survives the massacre by hiding under the table. However, when he returns home, he finds that the Wild Ones members have already abandoned the group after agreeing to vote themselves out of existence. Not one to give up easily, he takes a stand to operate alone in Hamilton as the only Hells Angel, and he is not done yet. This is just the beginning. By 1982, Stadnick had risen through the ranks to become a respected member of the Hells Angels, and his ambition clearly beats his inability to hear and speak French. It is for this reason that he came from Ontario with another Wild One turned Hells Angels, Noel Mailloux, who serves as his interpreter until they return to Hamilton in December 1982. Stadnick hopes to lie low for a while before setting up a Hells Angels chapter in Ontario, but his plans are derailed by Mailloux. During their lengthy cocaine binge, Mailloux and his stripper girlfriend Connie Augustine got into a disagreement. Mailloux unsuccessfully attempted to murder her, killing her 4-year-old son and her best friend instead. Mailloux also attracts attention to himself when he is caught wandering the streets, shooting at anyone within sight. While he is arrested and convicted, it is Stadnick who feels the most affected by his actions. The incident destroys the reputation of the Hells Angels in Ontario even before Stadnick opens his chapter. But in July 1983, Yves Buteau, the National Hell Angels president and Stadnick's mentor, establishes the first ever Hells Angels chapter outside of Quebec after convincing the Satan's Angels Biker Club with its 3 chapters to join the Hells Angels. En route to the opening ceremony of the new chapter, Mario Parente, president of the Outlaws Club, sees them. In a rash, Parente and his fellow outlaws spray bullets on the bus at Mr. Mugg's Coffee and Donut Shop in Wawa, hoping to kill Michel and Nadeau. While his attempt is unsuccessful and no one is killed, it serves as an indication of how the outlaws feel about the Hells Angels moving into Ontario through Stadnick's newly formed chapter. Instead of a new Hells Angels chapter in Ontario, the patchover eventually takes place on July 21, 1983, in Vancouver Island, where the Satan's Angels are based, establishing a new chapter in British Columbia. On Stadnick's end, things aren't going as planned, and before he can pack his bags for another adventure, another problem arises. This time, a bigger one. On September 8, 1983, Buteau is assassinated alongside Guy Gilbert in their meeting to discuss another patchover for the Kitchener chapter of Satan's Choice. The assassin is later identified as Gino Goudriau, another outlaw, and for many who know Stadnick, that is almost the final straw to mark the end of his career, especially as he still isn't a fluent French speaker. Luckily, he has made friends in higher places, so even the new national president, Michel Langlois, believes Stadnick is the best suited to start the Ontario chapter of the Hells Angels. At this time, on top of his full patch, he is wearing a filthy few patch, only given to those who kill for the gang. However, he still has a lot to do, and considering the strength of the other outlaw gangs and the mafia families of Hamilton, he still has to keep a low profile. Just as Stadnick is beginning to find his feet, tragedy strikes again. This time he is in Quebec on his way to the first memorial of Buteau when a Catholic priest, driving in a hurry to meet the visiting Pope in Montreal, runs him over in his motorcycle. Stadnick suffers third-degree burns from the resulting fire, leaving him with horrific scars all over his face and losing half of 2 of his fingers and much of his nose. Langlois requests his right-hand man, Réjean Lessard, to organize for the 13th Tribe biker gang from Halifax, who are interested in joining the Hells Angels, to guard Stadnick at St. Joseph's Hospital in Hamilton. Believing he is in danger, Stadnick also requests the police guard him, and they do so at night while the bikers watch him during the day. And while some officers feel like it compromises their integrity to watch a known gang member, he is a citizen like everyone else. As a reward, the 13th Tribe biker gang is allowed to join the Angels, becoming the first in Atlantic Canada. Meanwhile, Stadnick becomes even more introverted thanks to the burns, and he moves to a trailer park in Carlisle, Hamilton. If there's ever a perfect definition of lying low, Stadnick has to be it. While living in the trailer, he establishes a good rapport with his neighbors, some of whom are later surprised to learn that he is part of a bike gang. While living in the trailer park, he tries to avoid trouble, and when his neighbors find a plastic bag full of amphetamines, the police put it back, hoping he'd pick it, but he isn't falling for their trap. His cautiousness extends to where he holds his numerous meetings with the Hells Angels, including his back office at the Rebel Roadhouse bar in Hamilton, which he was using to plan drug routes and expansion strategies. The Outlaws, led by Parente, are hot on Stadnick's heels. But when Parente is arrested and Stadnick becomes the national chairman, his influence, especially in the drug trade, grows significantly. Stadnick's first order of business is to expand Hells Angels' reach, and he starts with the Vikings, an outlaw bikers club based in Quebec City, where he places his friend and associate, Maurice Boucher, in charge. In August 1988, he is arrested at the house of a known former Satan's Choice member and prominent drug dealer and smuggler, Douglas Freeborn. However, the charges are dropped after Freeborn covers for him, claiming the 11 ounces of hash recovered from the raid had nothing to do with Stadnick and that they were his. During the court proceedings, he emphasizes that he is not even the president of the Hells Angels, hoping to continue his practice of laying low, even though this is just the first in a series of drug-related activities that Stadnick is linked to over the next few years. By 1990, he has already established himself as one of the most dangerous Hells Angels in Canada, but he continues expanding his drug empire. First, he identifies Manitoba as one of the most important provinces to expand into, as journalists Julian Scher and William Marsden refer to it as the axis of distribution for any drugs moving east and west in the country. Ontario also becomes a crucial cog in the business, as it is where most of the drugs from Montreal into the prairie provinces are smuggled through. As he continues to establish connections across the country, he becomes the Hells Angels ambassador, not only traveling around to forge new alliances, but also to proceed with drug sales. Stadnick is good at eluding arrest and prosecution, and he is even daring enough to call Officer John Gordon Harris of the Hamilton Police at his workstation to complain about his solid gold belt buckle shaped in the form of the Angels' Death Head logo that the police had damaged while arresting him. He is confident that the police are unable to track him down, and he furthers the Hells Angels agenda by dividing other gangs and then absorbing them into the Angels' activities, including drug trafficking. By 1998, he has commissioned some of the most dangerous Hells Angels chapters, including the Sherbrooke chapter, which has since established itself as a dominant force in the world of outlaw biker gangs in Canada. In December 2000, Stadnick inspires a host of Ontario-based biker gangs, including Satan's Choice, the Lobos, the Vagabonds, the Paradise Riders, the Last Chance, and a section of the Loners, to join his gang in a widely publicized ceremony. The mass patchover is one of its kind, leading to the instant growth of the Hells Angels in the Greater Toronto area into the largest chapter in the world. However, having so many members means difficulty in leadership, which Stadnick is about to find out the hard way. In 2003, the sloppiness and mismanagement of information by some high-ranking officials working alongside Stadnick led to his arrest in Mexico. He is brought back to Canada and charged with 13 counts of murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, 2 counts of narcotics trafficking, and 2 counts of attempting to smuggle narcotics. While the charges don't stick due to a lack of concrete evidence, he knows the police are onto him, and he opts to lie low and put a hold on his quest for expansion. But he can hide for so long before he is arrested again in 2004. This time, the police are prepared to put an end to his reign of terror, and he is sentenced to 20 years imprisonment for convictions ranging from conspiracy to murder to drug trafficking and involvement in gang activities. In 2014, he is paroled with strict instructions forbidding him to avoid any contact or association with biker gangs for 5 years, after which he walks back into the Hells Angels world. By the time of his conviction, Stadnick has played his part in ensuring the Hells Angels are set for life, having grown them in numbers and strength. From being born to immigrant parents to becoming one of the most influential figures in the history of the Hells Angels, Stadnick's journey is nothing short of remarkable.
In the next chapter in our saga, the spotlight shifts to yet another figure who emerged from obscurity to dominate the Canadian motorcycle underworld. Some hate him, others fear him, but most of them want his head on a spike. So hold on to your breath as we delve deeper into the astonishing ascent of yet another Hells Angels president who emerged from nothing to shape the destiny of an empire.
He's Australia's most wanted man and the most elusive.
This person is a murderer. He has shot to avoid apprehension, and we consider him extremely dangerous.
He was once a mere bodyguard, just a son of Turkish immigrants who moved to Australia in search of greener pastures. And when he landed in the land down under, he quickly rose to the top in the confines of the biker world.
Angelo Pandeli is a man of resilience. He's not willing to go down, and if he must, he will take others down with him.
For months now, detectives have been on his radar, observing his movements between Dubai and Turkey, but always missing him by a whisker. While this is going on, Angelo Pandeli has been secretly running the drug world, churning more than $1.5 billion every year. His pockets run deep, and he has only one goal: giving authorities a run for their money. The question is, will he succeed? When Constantino and Marika Pandeli moved to Adelaide from Turkey in the 1970s, they only had one goal: giving their unborn child the perfect life they never heard. So when Angelo Pandeli joined the world, he found his path already laid out. The parents were avid business people owning chains of pubs in South Australia. Little did they know that their plans to give him a better life would actually breed a new passion in him, becoming an outlaw. To the casual observer, young Angelo Pandeli seemed no different than any other child born to working-class immigrant parents in the small, tight-knit community of Whyalla.
His parents ran the local Sundowner Hotel in the 1970s, a cozy establishment where rowdiness and chaos was the soundtrack to Angelo's earliest years.
Yet even in those dim, smoke-stained rooms of the Sundowner, neighbors gathered like family. But he had other plans, grander passions, that would eventually lead him to the darkest crevices of the outlaw underworld. And when his parents decided to move to Adelaide, that's when all hell broke loose. Angelo quickly showed an interest in hanging out with the big boys. He'd mostly frequent local pubs and bars, and this is where he met John Pike. Pike hired Angelo to provide security against rival outlaw motorcycle club members at Heaven nightclub in Adelaide. But this wasn't just any security detail. It was a nod to the underworld, a quiet acknowledgement of his dreams and passion to rule the underworld. For a time, he became a bodyguard, rubbing shoulders with some of the most notorious Hells Angels kingpins. And that's when he decided to join the Hells Angels as a junior member.
Pandeli's association with John Pike spiked law enforcement's, especially considering the background of Pike's associates, one of whom was Anthony Sobey, a shareholder in Pike's company. with ties to the Gypsy Jokers Bikie Club.
Meanwhile, Pike's other shareholders included Melbourne businessmen with their own checkered pasts. It's this association with the big wigs of Hell's Angels that catapulted Angelo Pandeli into his success as he began learning the ropes of drug trafficking. This business proved lucrative for Angelo because by 2006, he bought a mansion in Pyrmont for $2 million. Hold on to that house, as it will become important when police officers raid him. In 2006, he was found to not be a fit and proper person to engage in security services at a local pub, the Newmarket Hotel, after it emerged in court that he was paid to keep other bickies out. From there, he moved to the bright lights of Sydney. If Angelo's allegiance to the Hells Angels marked his point of no return into the underworld's black hole, it was his migration to Sydney that truly solidified his transformation into certifiable criminal royalty in the mid-2000s. Here, his sadistic ambition and cunningness allowed him to claw his way up the bikie hierarchy until he sat stubbornly upon its apex as national president after former boss Felix Lyle was jailed. He became one of the most powerful bickies in the city, known to be a regular at high-end restaurants at Star City Casino. By then, he had taken over as the gang's national president after moving interstate to set up the Hells Angels Sydney City chapter. And this is where things became even more heated. From 2006, he dived deeper into his business while still handling his presidential duties. In the entire time, he was able to make millions and millions of dollars, but he managed to avoid paying taxes. That's until 2014, when Australia's tax authorities joined forces with police under Operation Morpheus. Their mission? Crack down on criminal biker gangs. Pandeli's home in Sydney was one of the first ones to be raided for failing to file returns. The tax office had joined forces with police under Operation Morpheus, ordering him to provide income info in 2016. But Pandeli didn't comply. When they caught up with him, Pandeli admitted guilt for the tax fraud in court. However, like a true brother, the accountant took fall for the fraud, saying his tax software glitches caused Pandeli's missing return. So the judge let Pandeli off easy. No conviction was recorded because the judge believed Pandeli reasonably trusted his accountant's work.
Pandeli's case kicked off the tax office's biggest crackdown on outlaw biker gangs. Nearly 200 gang members were investigated for skipping taxes, dodging lodgements, payments, and income reporting.
The taxmen slapped 11 bikers with a surprise $4 million tax debt notice. The previous year, Morpheus busted 668 suspected tax cheats linked to gangs, recovering $13.3 million in owed taxes. They also secured 193 late returns, totaling $5.9 million in over 35 prosecutions and $55,000 in fines. And that's when shit got even crazier. Pandeli worked his way up the ranks in the Hells Angels gang down in South Australia. In 2006, he took control of the Sydney branch. His power only grew after the old boss Felix Lyle went to prison. But then the cops started taking notice of his activities. They believed he was seriously involved in drug trafficking. But by 2016, he had fled Australia and went to the Middle East.
So when the authorities got wind of a drug trafficking operation headed by Pandeli, they went to his Pyrmont house and raided it.
The plan was to sneak over $250 million worth of crystal meth into Australia using a small airplane. But the American drug police seized the drugs before the plane could take off from California. They grabbed the whole load. The Aussie cops also found $2.4 million cold hard cash stuffed in a truck. They think the money was for the drug deal too. A 72-year-old airplane pilot got arrested as well before he could disappear. One cop said, Pandeli keeps a low profile, but he is a big shot in biker gangs, not just in Australia, but worldwide. Even though Pandeli spends lots of time overseas, the cops still raided his waterfront house in Sydney. They took boxes of papers and files as evidence, and he was not the only one under pursuit. At 52 years old, the former pub worker's son has undergone a grand metamorphosis into Australia's most wanted outlaw. Now operating discreetly from Turkish and Cypriot enclaves, Pandeli is the suspected new mastermind behind the billion-dollar narco pipeline flooding drugs into the country. Through an undercover underworld network stretching to Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle, he has amazingly remained undetected despite controlling immense wealth and territorial power. Even his wife, Carrie, has thrived, her born-in-Bali fashion brand becoming a hit with affluent influencers. From unpromising beginnings, Angelo Pandeli has stunningly risen to rule as the era's biggest Australian crime kingpin. now known as Mr. Big.
For the law enforcement desperately trying to catch him, he is both a ghost and their ultimate open-cast mine.
As we absorb the electrifying saga of Chuck Zito's tumultuous journey, we're reminded that within the world of the Hells Angels, every president's tale is a captivating narrative unto itself. Chuck's story isn't just a bad boy turned good kind of narrative. He has seen it and done it all, from famously punching Jean-Claude Van Damme multiple times to the numerous headline-grabbing moments when he was arrested for drug trafficking. Buckle up, it's about to go down.
In 1979, a group of 19 Hells Angels is hired to appear in the film Dead Ringer. But for one biker, this is no ordinary job. It is an eye-opener to an inner passion, and the call is too loud to ignore. It ignites a fire, and the fire lights up his path to the pinnacle of Hollywood. He doesn't just dominate the film and television realm. He is also a respected figure in Hells Angels history. His name? Chuck Zito. He is featured in hits like Homefront, Carlito's Way, and The Rock. But his journey to Hollywood's glitzy hills is anything but typical. It's a tale of grit, guts, and an unexpected twist of fate that could rival any of the plots he's played on screen. A one-time president of the Hells Angels New York chapter, he's not only ridden on the wild side but has practically defined it. Chuck's story isn't just a bad boy turned good kind of narrative. He has seen it and done it all. From famously punching Jean-Claude Van Damme multiple times to the numerous headline-grabbing moments when he was arrested for drug trafficking. It is not every day that you find a man whose resume reads like a crime thriller and an action movie all rolled into one. So lean closer as we dive deeper into the roller coaster life of Chuck Zito, the Hells Angels president dominating Hollywood. This is one ride you don't want to miss. Before the storm. Born and raised in the bustling streets of New York, Chuck Zito decides to enter the world of sports. And while his peers play cops and robbers, he is busy learning the art of boxing and martial arts. The home classes are courtesy of his dad, a professional welterweight boxer. By the age of 17, Chuck is throwing heart-shaped eyes at his high school sweetheart, Kathy. Their young love leads them down the aisle at the tender age of 17. But will the marriage withstand the waves that are about to rock the boat? Only time will tell. Before diving headfirst into the biker life, Chuck had another passion tugging at his heartstrings: boxing. But it's one thing to learn how to throw a punch and another to step into the ring. So he has a big decision to make. Can he survive the grueling demands of the sport, or will he find himself counting stars? He is about to find out the hard way. Professional boxing. Chuck is no ordinary tough kid from New York. He is forced to grow up early after marrying as a teenager, and the gritty gyms of New Rochelle and White Plains become his refuge. He gets in the ring for his first Golden Gloves bout, and boy, does he make a splash. He knocks out some of the biggest names in the industry. Crowds are gasping, competitors are seeing stars, and he is on a roll. But it is not the beginning of a stellar career yet. He lacks discipline. He fails to maintain a proper exercise regime, and he treats boxing as a mere hobby rather than a career, hitting the gym only a few days before a fight. But luckily, his talent doesn't go unnoticed. He becomes a fixture at fights across the New York tri-state area. His charisma and skill inside the ring make him a crowd favorite, and the media is all over him. He even finds himself in the same room with other prolific boxers like Mike Tyson. And he befriends Arturo Gatti, accompanying him to the ring for major fights. But just as quickly as his star rises, his interest in professional boxing fizzles out. Perhaps getting punched in the face for a living isn't as fun as it sounds. And that's when he decides to take an uncertain path. A path that could jeopardize everything, including his marriage. Life as Hell's Angel. Chuck tries to follow in his father's footsteps, but being a boxer is not his strongest suit. He decides to pursue other interests, and his pursuit lands him on motorcycles. He starts his journey in the motorcycle world with a passionate dream. And to make it a reality, He creates the New Rochelle Motorcycle Club in 1974. It's a move that changes his fortunes for the better. Fast forward to 1976, and he merges the club with the Bronx-based Ching-A-Ling Nomads. Things get rowdier, and it's no longer all about bikes. It's about building connections. And his connection with Sandy Alexander, a Hells Angels member and pro boxer, bears fruit. And that's when he decides to take his bike life to the next level. He wants to join his New Rochelle MC with another prominent biker club. And the Hells Angels are the most attractive option, with Sandy Alexander as his way in. In 1979, he joins the Hells Angels after being a prospect for some time. The club doesn't take in anyone, but he charms his way into the hearts of its members and leadership, earning himself the nickname Charming Chuck. But there's a plot twist. To earn his stripes, he has to kill a target, or at least try. And he does. His target is a man accused of shooting and injuring a Hells Angels member. Chuck uses a remote-controlled device from a model airplane to detonate C4 explosives. The target escapes narrowly with severe injuries, and Chuck is lucky too. He dodges charges for the bombing. But this is just the first in a long line of events that would leave everyone close to him questioning his ethics. He continues to rise in influence and rank within the club, and run-ins with the police rise with his position. In no time, he becomes the Hells Angels vice president, and then a founding father and president of the Hells Angels New York Nomads, a position that puts him at loggerheads with the FBI. FBI on his heels. In May 1985, the FBI comes knocking. Over 100 Hells Angels members and associates are arrested in a series of raids across the country. Chuck evades arrest, but his luck soon runs out. A warrant is issued for his arrest. By this time, he has already established a bodyguard hiring service, and he is arrested in Tokyo, Japan, while performing his bodyguard duties. Tired of running, he pleads guilty to a drug charge. A 10-year sentence turns into 7 and then 6 years. And he serves in 19 different federal prisons. Interestingly, he maintains that he never did drugs. And in 1991, he walks out a free man. He keeps a low profile until he finds himself in the limelight again. Quitting the Hells Angels. In 2004, he decides to give himself more freedom, retiring from the club after 25 years, and he does so in good standing. It is a privilege only reserved for the most respected members. And what does he leave for? A passion he had discovered back in 1979, the same year he joined the Hells Angels. He has already started exploring it, but now he wants to do it full time. It's a major turning point in the story of his life. But will it pay off? Dominating Hollywood. To understand how he finds himself in Hollywood, let's rewind back time to 1979. Chuck's journey into Hollywood began in 1979, the year he joins the Hells Angels. Along with 18 other Hells Angels from the NYC chapter, he is hired to star in the film Dead Ringer. The film stars none other than Meatloaf and Cher. It is never released due to legal troubles. But being part of the cast leaves a lasting impact on Chuck. It lights a fire under him, and not even his hectic schedule as a fully fledged biker can extinguish it. With a little help from a leading actor and friend, Mickey Rourke, he kicks off his stuntman career in 1983. His first role is as Rourke's stunt double in Year of the Dragon. For a beginner, he does significantly well. But he has to get his priorities right. He has to choose between his newfound passion for film and being president of the Hells Angels. And it's a no-brainer. Film can always come second to his commitment to the club. He puts a halt on his aspirations as an actor, but only until he is arrested for drug trafficking in 1885. After pleading guilty, he serves a 6-year sentence. And in 1991, he emerges from prison and hits the ground running in Tinseltown. He makes his first appearance in the same year, portraying the bus attacker in Neon City. Seeing the fame that the role earns him, he doesn't look back. Fast forward, and his filmography is nothing short of epic. From action-packed classics like Die Hard with a Vengeance and The Rock, to thrillers like The Juror and Heaven's Prisoners, he's rocking the world. And he makes his mark, not just in film but in television shows too. In 1996, he steps into the gritty world of HBO's Oz as mobster Chucky Pancamo, becoming a fan favorite for all 6 seasons. But that's not enough. He makes a pit stop in the wrestling ring, appearing on WCW Monday Nitro alongside Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And when he retires in 2004, he's ready to dominate Hollywood. So he lands on the big screen once more in 2005's Carlito's Way: Rise to Power, and later in the drama television series The Young and the Restless. Besides film, he takes the airwaves by storm on the radio, keeping things spicy by hosting Chuck Zito's Italian Bad Boy Hour on WVOX. And if he thought that controversy only lives in the world of motorcycle gangs, he is wrong. In 2010, Chuck throws down the gauntlet with a $5 million lawsuit against FX. He claims that they swiped his idea for an outlaw motorcycle group after a development meeting in 2006. But the courtroom battle doesn't go his way. Regardless, his high-profile journey to becoming an acclaimed actor in Hollywood is no walk in the park. But it's not just through acting that he leaves an indelible mark. He has the mind of a businessman. He takes every business opportunity as it comes. And he sees one in the entertainment industry. Bodyguard in Hollywood, 1979 is a special year for Chuck. It is the year he officially joins the Hells Angels and discovers his passion for acting. But that's not all. It's also the year that he opens his own company, Charlie's Angels Bodyguard Service. He is fresh from guarding actor Robert Conrad at a motorcycle convention, and he discovers that it could be a lucrative business. His work as a bodyguard kicks off with a bang. He is hired to protect actress Lorna Luft. She recommends him to her half-sister Liza Minnelli and her entourage. And it's smooth sailing onward. He isn't just any bodyguard, he is Chuck Zito. A former renowned boxer and martial artist, word spreads fast across Hollywood, and soon enough he is rubbing shoulders with the industry's A-listers. His client list is not ordinary. He's got the likes of Muhammad Ali, Michael Jackson, Sean Penn, Eric Roberts, Charlie Sheen, and Sylvester Stallone on speed dial. And so do they. Luckily, Chuck's brother-in-law is a policeman. He rounds up off-duty cops to help Chuck with bodyguard duties during star-studded events like award shows. When he's not with the Hells Angels, safeguarding Hollywood's finest becomes his devotion. But it's not all glitz and glamour. Like every other life he has lived, this one comes with a fair share of drama. Hollywood drama. First, he allegedly knocks gossip columnist A.J. Benza out cold at Score's strip club in Manhattan for spreading a false rumor about him in the Daily News. And then there's the legendary showdown with Jean-Claude Van Damme, the muscles from Brussels. They have a history, but things get pretty heated at Scores in February 1998. He unleashes a flurry of punches on Van Damme. And what for? Van Damme tells a bouncer that Chuck has no heart. The bouncer tells Chuck about it. And Chuck doesn't play when it comes to his reputation. The brawl with Van Damme is like a marketing stunt. He even jokes about it, saying that if he had known the fight would have gotten him so much positive publicity, he would have knocked Van Damme out 10 years earlier. Chuck's life is like a roller coaster ride of fame, fortune, and fists. From the streets of New York to the star-laden corridors of Hollywood, he has made a name for himself. And with every role, he continues to weave his intricate tale into the books of history.
As we conclude our exploration of Chuck Zito's remarkable journey, we shift our focus to another compelling figure within the realm of motorcycle clubs. Known to his inner circle as Taco and to law enforcement as Harry Taco Bowman, his name alone sparks intrigue and curiosity. Yet beyond the headlines and law enforcement pursuits, who is the man behind the myth? With his legendary status among the Outlaws Motorcycle Club and the relentless pursuit by FBI agents, his story is ripe with mystery and intrigue.
The FBI has added a fugitive to its 10 most wanted list.
It's a $2 million reward for information leading to his arrest and/or conviction.
Either turn yourself in or its collaborative effort will continue.
The year is 1998, and the FBI Most Wanted list gets a new edition. But unlike the others, this isn't your run-of-the-mill criminal. It's a man who skyrocketed to notoriety in the world of roaring engines and leather jackets. Yet not many people seem to have any idea who he is. His close friends know him as Taco, and he comes to the world's attention as Harry Taco Bowman. But his is not just a name. He's a living legend among the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. And when his name lands on the FBI goons, they go on a frenzy. But Bowman is like the Houdini of the biker world. And if the FBI think catching him will be a breeze, they're in for a rude shock. But who is he, really? Well, grab your helmets and hold on tight, because we're diving headfirst into the adrenaline-infused tale of Harry Taco Bowman, the Outlaw MC founder who turned the shadows into his playground. Born in July 1949, Bowman has a normal childhood. Life on a farm on Range Road in St. Clair Township, an accountant mother crunching numbers for the U.S. government by day and managing a household of 5 children a night, and the usual ruckus you'd expect from any young boy. His high school days at Port Huron Catholic High School are relatively quiet, too. Together with his brothers, they are known as the toughest kids in the block. Could it be that their upbringing toughens them up? Or are they just naturally robust? Either way, they sure do leave an impression. Because even at a young age, he is no stranger to local law enforcement. By the time he's a teenager, he's already ruffled feathers and landed in trouble for disorderly conduct. His friends call him Taco thanks to his dark complexion and resemblance to someone of Hispanic descent.
People thought he looked Hispanic or Mexican or whatever and called him Taco.
But he is about to undergo quite a transformation. From a simple taco to landing a top spot on the FBI's Most Wanted list. Where does it all begin? How did we get here? Harry is already on the naughty list of local law enforcement in the 1960s, but he is aiming higher. He wants more than just leaving a name behind. And what better way to do that than to switch his farm boots for motorcycle ones? He proceeds to join one of the most revered bike clubs in the area, the Detroit chapter of the Outlaw MC. As a true renegade personifying the true essence of an outlaw, he is accepted into the club with open arms. And he proves he's worth his weight in gold. His words instill fear in anyone who dares to cross him, allowing him to climb the biker hierarchy faster than a Harley on an open road. By 1970, he is sitting pretty as the president of the Detroit chapter. And under his rule, the Outlaws aren't just a biker club, they are the biker club.
I mean, you couldn't walk down Main Street without seeing outlaws.
They dabble in everything. From drug trafficking to extortion, they are like the Walmart of crime, offering a little bit of everything. But even then, they need to appear legit. So they also own businesses to keep an honest front and launder their crime proceeds. And that's not the end of it. Bowman is convinced that the club is lying on so much potential, so he looks to Canada for a partnership with another club wreaking havoc on that side of the border. The Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club. The deal includes exclusive rights for the Outlaws to become the primary distributors of Satan's Choice's home-made PCP and meth in the U.S. And to sweeten the pot, they open a fugitive exchange program where members of each club fleeing from law enforcement would be harbored in the other club's country. It's an alliance that would come in handy later for Bowman himself. But he is not just in the business of making friends from the north. He is also on a mission to expand his empire. And his first order of business becomes patching over some Satan's Choice chapters into outlaws. It's like a corporate takeover, only with less PowerPoint and more leather. He even convinces Garnet Mother McEwen, a bigwig of the Choice, to defect and join the Outlaws bandwagon. And Mother doesn't board alone. He boards with 8 other Satan's Choice chapters. And they meet a ruthless president in the Outlaws. Legend has it that Bowman ruthlessly deals with chatty members who don't understand the concept of keeping quiet. A trait that makes the Outlaws elusive to the FBI. At the helm, in a 1982 summit held in Joliet, Illinois, Bowman goes from a local legend to an international icon as the president of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. It is a step up into the big leagues, and he takes the reins from his mentor, Harry Henderson. His first order of business, moving the Outlaws International headquarters from Chicago to Detroit. If Detroit was the center of attention due to the number of clubs fighting for dominance, it just got a whole lot more interesting. All operations are run from a fortified clubhouse on Warren Avenue. Bowman deals with everything from club policies to keeping an eye on his fellow bikers. He brings changes, not just in the club but also in his personal life. First, he moves his family to Grosse Pointe Farms, a swanky suburb of Detroit. Then he enrolls his 3 daughters in expensive private schools. But his life is not like that of any other outlaw president. He seems to have one foot in the straight world and the other in the biker realm. Forget the long-haired, bearded biker stereotype. Bowman shaves his head clean, which makes him look nowhere close to an outlaw biker. He is also decked out in expensive suits. Like the James Bond of the biker world, he cruises around in a custom-made, armor-plated Cadillac, and he never leaves behind his armed bodyguard. By the early 90s, Bowman is living a double life in Michigan and Florida, complete with a wife and mistress in Detroit, not to mention numerous girlfriends around the country. But he's not just a ladies' man. He is a crime boss extraordinaire, and he's slowly turning the Outlaws into a sophisticated criminal enterprise. The club is into everything. From gambling to loan sharking and extortion, every chapter reigns supreme in its hometown. On the other hand, Bowman is making moves like a chess grandmaster. He forges alliances with Italian and Eastern European crime groups. In the process, he rubs elbows with numerous politicians, judges, and high-ranking police officers. But another thing that is at the top of his agenda is intelligence gathering. He builds an adept counterintelligence network, gathering information on law enforcement efforts against the club. And the grassroots are not neglected. Under his leadership, the Outlaws balloon to over 1,500 members. His charisma and affection for his closest friends earn him undivided loyalty. This ensures that his inner circle is nearly impenetrable to law enforcement. But every king has his quirks, and Bowman is no exception. Between his mood swings, paranoia, and substance use, he's often up for days, and these don't help with his decision-making. In 1991, things get heated in Detroit. The Outlaws extort Lebanese racketeers who are protected by the Mafia. This ticks off a Mafia kingpin who orders Bowman's assassination, but Bowman is nowhere to be found, and the assassins cannot get the job done. And you won't believe who tips off Bowman: the FBI. He continues to run the show, eliminating any threat to the club's welfare, but as he cruises to the top, he faces a formidable threat, this time from another club on the rise, eyeing his throne. Can he withstand this new threat and keep his crown? Or is he about to be dethroned? The Outlaws under Bowman have stamped their authority over their territories, but they have an unrelenting adversary, another club competing with them for greener pastures, the Hells Angels. And this isn't just a spat over who has the shiniest chrome on their bikes, it's a full-blown war. But it's nothing new. It's a brawl that started way back in 1973 when outlaws in Florida killed 3 Hells Angels in retaliation for a beatdown at a New Year's party. Fast forward to 1993 and the clubs are still going all out to attack each other. Bowman and Sonny Barger don't see eye to eye. They are like alpha dogs, leading their packs against each other. But Bowman does not intend to start a biker war. So he plays nice. He holds not 1 but 2 peace talks with the Hells Angels national officer George Christie. However, just when things are looking nice and a treaty looks possible, Bowman backs out. Rumor has it that one of his lieutenants convinces him that making peace is a sign of weakness. And why not? It's classic biker bravado in play.
The bombings, the murders, the extortions, the kidnappings, all came from Taco, and everything always pointed to the top.
Even worse, Bowman sends a team to Minnesota to spy and plan for the assassination of the local Hells Angels chapter chairman. However, they can't pull it off as the car bomb detonates prematurely, injuring the bomber instead. But Bowman isn't done yet. Bowman versus Sonny Barger. On New Year's Eve 1993, exactly 2 decades after the Outlaws and Hells Angels feud began, Harry Bowman issues an address. His heartfelt speech delivered at a Fort Lauderdale hotel suite officially declares war on the Hells Angels. He even allegedly places a $100,000 bounty on Barger and Christie. The stage is set for one of the biggest bike club feuds in history. And the next 2 years become a biker royale. Brawls, hired hitmen, and bombings are the order of the day. Bowman orders an attack on the Hells Henchmen clubhouse at 1734 West Grand Avenue. He suspects that the henchmen are helping the Hells Angels. A car bomb is detonated outside the club, leading to the destruction of the building's steel door. It is the 3rd largest bombing in American history, but it's not enough.
On October 18th of 1994, members of the Daytona Beach chapter of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club went down to Brevard County. They built a bomb out of 5-gallon jerry can full of gas with a PVC pipe filled with black powder. Threw it through a window of the club and blew the club up.
It is a successful attack, and they keep coming.
This just escalated from there. November 28th of 94, members went up to Chicago and blew up the Hells Henchmen clubhouse.
It's another blow for the Angels, and the Chicago Hells Angels are forced to relocate. But by the spring of 1995, both sides are back at the table. The turf war is slowly getting out of hand, and federal agencies are watching them like hawks. Therefore, in 1996, the clubs sign a peace treaty. The Hells Angels seem to get the wrong end of the deal, but they have no other option. They agree to back down from setting up in Chicago, opting for a clubhouse in the suburb of Harvey instead. But just when Bowman thinks he can catch a break, another challenge is knocking on the door. This time it affects Bowman directly. After all, this is the biker world. And the road never stays quiet for long, especially not for the international chairman of the Outlaws MC. End of the road. The FBI have come knocking. They want their piece of meat. Bowman has served the Outlaws for almost 3 decades now. And during that time, the local and federal authorities have had their eyes on him. But he is not just going to give up everything and turn himself in. So they set the ball rolling for his arrest. And it begins with the arrest of 10 outlaws, with 2 of them singing like canaries to the state. It brings about the change of an era, marked by arrest warrants, high-speed chases, and a twist no one saw coming. Well, except Bowman. Fugitive. In 1996, a DEA operation is in full swing. They call it Operation Silver Spoke. And it uncovers all the dirty stuff that the Outlaws have been up to in Florida. And under the RICO Act, the arrested men are feeling the heat. The prosecutor's words get to them. And for the best deal, they dish out the big fish. The international president, Harry Bowman. The U.S. Attorney's Office slaps Bowman with a smorgasbord of charges: RICO violations, drug trafficking, explosives, illegal firearms, the whole 9 yards. FBI agents raid his place in Grosse Pointe Farms. But he is already on the run, a run that would make him a ghost for the next 18 months. And while he's at it, James Wheeler keeps the presidential seat warm for him. On the FBI's list. In 1998, Bowman is elevated to the FBI's 10 most wanted list, and there's a $50,000 reward for information that could lead to his arrest. But remember his leadership style that clipped out any chatty member? Well, it's doing him some good now, as most outlaws keep their mouths shut. So to the public, he is a mystery man, but the FBI is determined more than ever. They go on a wild goose chase. They raid clubhouses in 5 countries. But Bowman is as elusive as a greased-up Houdini. In 1999, his run almost comes to an abrupt end. He is pulled over cruising in a Mercedes convertible with a blonde. Not a care in the world. But he slips away with a fake ID. And when the FBI shows the traffic footage to his mistress, she is ticked off after seeing him with another woman. Therefore, she spills the beans about Bowman's upcoming visit to Detroit, and the day of reckoning finally arrives on June 7, 1999. He's chilling in Sterling Heights in his usual anonymous self, but the FBI has this one chance to bring him in. So around 40 FBI agents, SWAT team members, and local cops crash his party. He is taken into custody without a fuss, and he's off to Florida for trial. For all the charges against him, he's facing a lifetime in jail. But he wants to see it play out to the end. And he does. Fast forward to 2001. Bowman is in court looking sharp in spectacles and a suit. But the court can't risk interference with the proceedings. So the jury is anonymous to ward off outlaw intimidation tactics. And after a month-long trial, Bowman is convicted on 8 counts and slapped with 2 life sentences, plus a buffet of additional time. Wheeler steps up permanently as the new outlaw president. Bowman spends his days in the clink until he passes away from cancer in March 2019. His death marks the end of an epic saga. But from a farm boy to biker kingpin to the FBI's most wanted, it's a tale you couldn't make up if you tried.